webcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. Now I'm going to read out my list of names to see who's here. We've got the three councillors, Pond, Whitehouse and Hadley. Democratic Service Officers Mrs. Kerman and Mrs. Messenger. Webcast Officer is Ms. Morton. And for the Rosemary off licence, which is the first application this afternoon, we have Hannah Gould, who's the licensing officer. The applicant agent, is that Mr. Turk? And objectors, Mr. and Mrs. Hyatt. Is there anybody on that list? Anybody here who's not on that list?
Yes, the objectors.
The objectors haven't arrived. The objectors are not in attendance.
Right. Okay, so they were asked if they wanted to come and speak, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and then we go on to the first application, which Hannah will.
Chairman, you have to go through the first items on the agenda. Apologies and declarations, please.
Right, we haven't got any apologies, have we?
No apologies received.
Have we got any interest? No. Right, Hannah, are you going to start us off on this?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Excuse me, sorry, Chair. Could you just highlight which councillors are sitting on this panel, please?
Yeah, Caroline Pond, Jonathan Whitehouse, and Ian Hadley.
Okay.
No, Chairman, I think for the first item it was Councillor Heather.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Wrong people. Yeah, Whitehouse, Pond, and Heather, was it? Or Hadley?
No, it was yourself, Chairman, and Councillor Hadley and Councillor Heather for the first Rosemary item.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
an
you.
an application has been made by ULAS Planning Limited on behalf of the applicant Kadir Kisa of River Off Licence for a new premises licence at Rosemary Dobbsware Road in Hoddesdon, EN11 0AZ. The application is for a new premises licence at this use class A1 shop to be used as an off licence. They intend to sell mostly food and groceries with alcohol to supplement. The application is to include the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises from Monday to Saturday between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is in line with the store's opening hours. The application was received on the 8th of October and all responsible authorities have received a copy of the application. It was advertised at the premises and in the local newspaper. All residents and businesses within a 150-metre radius of the premises were individually consulted. The authority has received 2 representations from local residents. The objections relate to all 4 of the licensing objectives. Responses have been received from Essex Police, Trading Standards, Public Health and Environmental Health, who have no objections. The Council's Planning Department have no objections, subject to it remaining a youth class A1 shop, and Essex County Fire and Rescue Services also have no objection and have written directly to the applicant informing them of the regulatory reform order. The subcommittee is asked to determine the application.
Thank you very much. Right, the procedure to be followed is that the lead officer, who we've already heard from, will outline the case. The applicant or representative will present his or her case, be questioned by members, and then by any objectors. Any objectors or persons making representations may then present their objections and be questioned by members and then by the applicants or their representatives. The objectors making representations may make a final statement, and finally the applicant has the right to make a final statement. So if we could have the applicant or his representative outlining his case, please.
Mr. Turk, you're on mute.
Yes, hi. Yeah, my name is Ulaş, and I am acting behalf on my client, and he is intending to make a grocery and a off-license shop at the addresses, and our opening time is very limited from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we are not serving any an alcohol. We are not selling anything after this hours, and we think we are not impacting anything to the area or the community, and we are just want to make the selling foods, the dairy products, newspaper, and another candies and other things to the community, and selling the alcohol just only making the business a little bit rentable and a little bit profitable. The thing is, it is very small shop, and we have got the A1 license already from planning, and we like to make this area make more live, and to make the business this area, and make the contribution selling some goods, because there is no off license around this site, around the street. This is our intention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Whitehouse?
I'm not participating in this hearing, Chairman.
Okay, you're my well, sorry, John. Right, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Not at the moment, Chair.
Oh, right, okay. Can I ask who the designated premises supervisor is? Is that Mr. Turk? Is that
Yes,
you?
Designated premises services is another person. His name is Sayit Omach. Sayit Omach. There is a Sayit Omach has got a personal premises license to be there all the time and selling this alcohol, and he will be all responsible to the selling alcohol at the premises.
Right, thank you. Councillor Heather.
All I was going to ask you, is it a separate premises to the CAF, or is it part of the CAF?
Sorry, could you say again the question?
Sorry, there's the cafe there. Is Rosemary a totally separate building premises, or is it part of that CAF?
Yeah, okay, I understand. It's got separate premises. It is not the altogether. It's a separate. There is a coffee and shop is going to be separate. They are in the same building, but they are separate premises. I understand.
It seemed to be a litter around the place that the objectors were worried might happen. Can you tell us how you're going to manage your litter? If there's any around the building?
Around to make that litter. We are going to use the current council collections or something.
Oh, right.
We are going to our litter everything. Yes. we are going to make an appointment and arrangement from the council to collection to litter or bin. You mean the bins, yeah? Bins and waste
Yeah, well,
collection.
litter. Would you do litter picking and so on?
Yeah.
Never mind. I expect it will. I'm sure you know what I mean. Right, have we got any objectives here? We haven't, have we?
No objectors are present.
No, okay. Would you like, you can make a final statement, Mr. Turk.
Sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. Before Mr. Turk does that, I just want to check, is there a written consent from the DPS in this? Have I missed it? There should be somewhere there should be something from the person who's going to be DPS saying that they're willing to do so.
Yeah. District office, Epping Forest officers? No.
Hannah, you're on mute.
Sorry, we do have written consent. Apologies, it wasn't added to the agenda.
Okay, great. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. I think what will happen now is that if Mr. Turk's finished his final statement, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, our final statement is we just like to open a new business in this area and selling goods with alcohol and the limited opening times until the Monday to Saturday until the 8 p.m. and Sunday 6 p.m. Yeah.
Councillors, have you got any other questions? Councillors, any more questions?
No, not from me.
Okay.
You'll be asked to be moved to the waiting room.
We don't seem to have Mr. Turk.
Should I I have an email address for him. I'll see if I can contact him.
Webcast has started.
It disappeared then. Right. We consider the application satisfies the necessary requirements in order to be considered as it is on the prescribed form. It has been advertised and relevant notifications given. We are grateful to Mr. Turk for his presentation to us this afternoon. We've taken these and the written materials submitted to us into account. We have considered what is appropriate to promote the full licensing objectives and the relevant part of the Council's licensing policy and the Home Office's guidance. During our deliberations in private session, our advisory officers gave us no advice. Granted, the decision of this subcommittee is that the application for a premises licence in respect of Rosemary, Dogweir Road, Hoddesdon, EN110AZ be granted, subject to the conditions as submitted by the applicant on the 8th of October 2020 and dated the 2nd of October 2020, which we consider are reasonable and proportionate and will not undermine the licensing objectives. We are also attaching the mandatory conditions contained in sections 19 to 21 of the Licensing Act 2003. The applicants and the objectors are reminded of their right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of a written notification of this decision. Okay? Right, thank you very much. I think we'll just stop for 5 minutes now and then get ready for the next one. Okay?
LinkedIn.
start the webcast.
The webcast is restarted.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing. Please could I remind members of the public who register to speak that they will be admitted to the meeting at the appropriate time. Be also aware that if technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. We've got apologies for absence and declarations of interest. I don't think we've got any of those. Thank you. Now I'm going to make sure we know who everybody is who's here. The councillors are me, Councillor Hadley and Councillor Whitehouse. We have Mrs. Kerman and Mrs. Messenger for Democratic Services. Rebecca Moulton is the webcast officer. And for the Abbey Grill, the licensing officer is Hannah Gould. Another licensing officer is Debbie Houghton. Environmental Health Officer, Katarzyna Bray. And the applicant agent, Robert Sutherland, who's just been speaking to us. And Essex Police, Ronan McManus. Our legal representative today is Dr. Sam Fowles, and the backup to that is Rosaline Ferrara. So is there anybody here who wasn't on that list?
Somebody's just connecting, Chair, I think might be associated with Abbey Grill.
I think that's correct. I think it's Hassan Parlak, who is the director. Thank you.
Hello, is that Hassan Parlak? You're on mute. Hassan, if you can hear us, you're on mute. Could you unmute your microphone, please? Hello, you're also not got a video connection.
Just 1 second. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So, Chair in attendance, there's also Hassan Parlak, who's the applicant, I believe. Is that right, Mr. Sutherland?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you turn on? Can you put it on mute?
Right. Well, before we start the hearing, I want to say that the councillors and the officers received some extra conditions yesterday on the Abbey Grill. There's about there's quite a few of them, about 13, plus a letter, I think, from Mr. Sutherland. Well, what I want to know is, has everybody who needs to had access to that document? Have the three councillors had time to read it? John?
Chair, it's Ronan McManus here. I haven't seen the 13 conditions. I saw the one that was sent today in relation to excluding an individual on the licence, but I haven't seen any of the others, I'm afraid.
You haven't had this one with 17 bits to it then? No. I thought it had come from you, actually.
If I may assist, it's a document that Ronan saw as part of the application, and then there were a number of conditions which he wanted slightly reworded, and it's just reflected in this document. It's a document which Ronan and I have discussed, and I think to the extent that he wanted the changes, it's agreed.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously the police haven't had time to read it yet, have they?
Madam Chair, if it's a document that we have discussed, yeah, I'm happy to go ahead because I'm aware of what was in that.
Is it this, Mr. That one?
Yes, that's the document. It's the conditions which were submitted with the application, and then the highlighted conditions are in fact the request from Rona McManus to myself about slightly rewording. There was a CCTV condition reworded and some additional conditions, and they're all agreed.
Okay, well, we'll proceed and see how we go, I think. If everybody's happy, that's all right. Right, can the applicant or his representative present his case? Oh, sorry, the lead officer, the lead officer from the district council needs to go first. Sorry.
Yep, no, that's fine. Hi, everyone. So an application has been made by Mr. Sutherland of Licenses Are Us Limited on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Hassan Parlak of Arin Restaurant Limited, for a premises licence at the Abbey Bar and Grill on 18 Sund Street, Waltham Abbey, Essex, EN9 1EE. The application is for a new premises licence at this restaurant and bar serving Turkish cuisine, and it's for the sale of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, and for providing late night refreshment during the following hours. Monday to Sunday, 1000 hours to midnight. New Year's Eve, 1000 hours to 1 a.m. on New Year's Day. The opening hours are slightly different. Monday to Sunday, 10 till midnight, and then New Year's Eve from 10 a.m. till 1:30 on New Year's Day. The application was received on the 2nd of October. The responsible authorities have received a copy of the application, which includes proposed conditions. It was advertised at the premises and in the local newspaper. All residents and businesses within a 150 metre radius of the premises were individually consulted also. The authority has received one objection from Essex Police, which relates to the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety objectives. Details are attached. As sort of discussed just now, there was a list of proposed conditions included within the initial application, which was sent out to all responsible authorities. Essex Police later agreed additional conditions with the applicant's agent, Mr. Sutherland. Apologies, it was not included in the agenda. However, you should all have a copy now. Further to that, another condition offered by Mr. Sutherland last night has been submitted to Essex Police. Members now also have a copy, and Mr. Sutherland may wish to discuss sensitively due to it being unredacted. And it may be asked if anyone feels they have any prejudice as a result, to make it known. A response was received from Environmental Health highlighting recent complaints made by the public concerning COVID safety. I thought that would be important, so I included that. And Essex County Fire and Rescue Service have no objections. They did visit the site and discuss the regulatory reform order with the applicant, and details are also attached. And that's it. The subcommittee is asked to determine the application.
Thank you. Mr. Sutherland, would you like to present your case now, please?
Thank you, Madam.
Welcome to Mr. Parlak.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Coban is still not here, but hopefully he will arrive shortly and will be able to join us at that stage. Madam, in relation to the application, much, I think, has been agreed. There is, I think, probably one key difference between the police and myself, which relates to the involvement of an individual who isn't part of the application. he is the individual who's mentioned in the specific condition. I had no other way of addressing the point other than to specifically mention him by name, because that addresses, I think, the concern which is raised by the police. In relation to this particular application, the premises has been a restaurant. It's operated as a restaurant for a number of years in various different hands. One of the previous license holders back in 2016 was Mr. Coban, who, of course, is the designated premises supervisor on this particular application. He was the license holder back in 2016, and he held the license, as I say, for about 1 year, 7 months. He then had health issues and moved on, and the restaurant was taken over by somebody else. He is coming back to assist Mr. Parlak in relation to the running of the premises and the compliance with the license and the conditions. Now, in respect of this particular application, the terms are set out. You'll see there's nothing extraordinary about the terms, the times which are sought, and the activities which are sought. It is a restaurant, and I'm just joined as you speak by Mr. Coban, so I'm just moving along, if I may, so that I can remain socially distant. So the circumstances are that you've seen the license conditions, which, as I say, in essence, have been agreed with the police. There are, as you look at the conditions, you will see that there's 2 versions of a CCTV condition, and I would ask you to prefer the highlighted version, as that's the one that's been put forward by the police, should you grant a license, of course. The condition 2 deals very specifically as to how the premises would operate. It will be as a restaurant and bar, and alcohol would only be by waiter waitress service to persons who are seated at tables or at the bar of the premises. There's then conditions dealing with off sales, which again would relate to any tables and chairs which may be placed out onto Sun Street, and also any takeaway orders, meals for delivery, etc. Instant book and dealing with incidents and what needs to be recorded. Refusals book separated on that as highlighted and agreed with the police. The timing of when the entries needs to be made, and that the refusals record can either be kept electronically or in hard copy and needs to be retained for a period of 12 months. Notices and various other age verification policy and all the other conditions, which, as I say, were submitted as part of the original application. Now, in respect of this particular application, the main, before I go on to the issue with the police, it's probably appropriate that I address the 2 other comments which are within your papers. They haven't been referred to as objections by your officer, and I think that's correct, because I think if you look at the environmental health officer indicates that they're not objecting to the application. They then go on, obviously, to refer to 2 complaints. I would ask you to disregard them in many ways, simply because, obviously, your officer is disregarding them and not placing any weight on them, because, obviously, they're not objecting to the application. And also, when you see the first one, which deals with COVID regulations, your officer is satisfied by and large, when they attend with regards to compliance with the regulations. And they're also satisfied, obviously, when they get the COVID secure risk assessment. The second entry is an anonymous complaint. And again, I would ask the committee to disregard it. Reference is made to the particular individual that I've made reference to in the condition. And I'm going to come on to him in a moment, if I may. It's an objection which, sorry, it's not substantiated. There's reference to noise. We don't know where the noise comes from. There's a suggestion that it might be from the premises, but again, there's nothing really to corroborate it. And so I would ask you to disregard that entry. In respect of the fire officer, again, I would submit it's not an objection as such. He raises a few points in relation to capacity, current capacity based on his powers under the Regulatory Reform Fire Service Order. And I would invite the committee to leave those issues being resolved between the fire officer and the premises. Again, he doesn't make any representation against the premises or against safety within the premises. Which brings us really to the representation of the police. Now, the police representation is detailed and goes through a chronology. Now, it relates to some instances during the summer, and particularly the one individual that is referred to in the condition that I have put forward. He and others end up being charged with a number of serious offences, and I believe are kept in custody whilst that case was being proceeding through the court. Now, I understand that those proceedings were in fact brought to an end because the witness who was giving evidence for the prosecution was found to be unreliable in other respects, and therefore the charges were dismissed, and the individual was released. I understand that he was subsequently arrested, and I think that's referred to by the police. But before we get there, there's reference, if you look at page 77 of your bundle, it refers to a meeting on the 7th of September when, in fact, myself and Mr. and Mr. Coban attend the premises, meet with the police, and we talk about the concerns about the particular individual mentioned in that condition. And I think it's reflected fairly, I think, by the officer that what was said at the meeting, and that whilst this individual was not connected with the business or the operation of the premises, he does come from the same village as Mr. Parlak, and there is a culture issue, as I understand it, that they, where people come from the same village, then there's a responsibility that they have to look after or ensure that those individuals are cared for. So there's that element, and that's what I think is touched on in the entry which relates to the 7th of September. We then go to the 6th of October, which refers to a subsequent charge. So the first part of the letter refers to incidents which, as I say, it's my understanding were dropped by the police during the summer. But the instance is then a fresh charge on the 6th of October. And it appears that Mr. Kamuglu is given bail by the Crown Court And as a condition of that bail, he has to reside or had to reside at the premises. That's raised by the police with me, or through me with the applicant, and I raise that with the applicant. But before I do that, there's a conversation which takes place with the police, which inquires as to because obviously they would be aware of the full detail of the condition and the issues involved. I'm not aware of anything in that regard because obviously I don't have any dealings with the individual at all, and he has nothing to do with this application. I raise a question, a very specific question with the police. And I say to the police, look, there is a condition of bail, as I understand it, that he resides at this particular premises. You obviously don't want him to reside at the premises because of this application that we're dealing with, and we can discuss and we can try and make arrangements. But obviously, we have to go back, or he will have to go back to the Crown Court in order to be able to change that bail condition. And therefore, I ask a very specific question as to whether there are any issues about any other addresses where he could not reside. And I was very specific, and I said, look, if he moves next door to the premises, if he's on the same road, if he's in Waltham Abbey, is any of that going to cause a difficulty if we make arrangements with the Crown Court for that to happen? And it was confirmed with me that that would not be an issue, that if, as long as he moved from the premises, then that would address the concern. And on that basis, that information was communicated to the particular individual, and an application was made to the Crown Court for the bail to be changed, for that condition to be changed, and for him to move residence. Now, subsequently, I am then informed that the residence that he have is too close to the premises, and therefore it's not acceptable, and hence the police objection that he's still involved with the premises. There's obviously reference to other conversations which he raises and comments which he's meant to have made to the police, none of which we're party to, none of which we're present at. And had Mr. Parlak been, had Mr. Coban been, then we would have made it very clear that whatever is being said about his involvement in the premises is just not true. So we're in a position where we have to prove a negative, as it were, and establish that he's got absolutely nothing to do with the premises. We have had temporary event notices, which have covered several days. We've worked within that. I'm not aware of any breaches of the temporary event notices that we've had and used. The premises, on occasions when they've not had temporary event notices, has operated within the difficult COVID restrictions that all premises are operating in, obviously without selling alcohol. So it's our submission to the committee that that in relation to this particular application, the operation of the premises, the concern which is being raised by the police, which is of a particular individual, we say is not involved. And that's why we put forward a condition which I would submit is clear and is enforceable, which deals specifically with this individual. It says that he shall not have any legal interest. Well, it's clear if he will have a legal interest, he would be on a lease or an equivalent document which would show that he would have a legal interest in the property, whether that's proprietary or otherwise, in the business or property, or be involved in the running of the business providing licensable activities at Abbey Grill. The address is given then, and shall not be permitted to enter or remain on the licensed premises whilst they are open for the purposes of providing licensable activities. That's my submission. That is very clear. The individual would be known to the police and I'm sure to other people within the area. The premises has a very detailed CCTV condition. If when the premises is open for licensable activities, this individual was to enter onto the premises and be allowed to remain on the premises, then that would be very clear from the CCTV. Police, of course, and the licensing authority, all the responsible authorities, have access to that CCTV and would be able to request it as well. And that's not in any way me trying to say, hey, you can, that justifies us. What we're saying is he has nothing to do with this operation. And the only way that we feel that we can demonstrate it is by having a very explicit condition which would prevent this individual not only being involved in the premises, but actually prevents him from coming to the premises at all. And that's a very strong, we would submit a very strong condition. So for the committee purposes, we say that put all the conditions together, put the Mr. Parlak and Mr. Coban with their involvement and experience, with their, and certainly Mr. Coban's history from 2016, when he's operated the premises without causing any difficulties under the premises license, that the proportionate approach for the committee in this case is to grant the license application subject to the conditions which are proposed. If there are any questions, then we may need to move around a little bit so that you will be able to see. Mr. Parlak, I know, is on his phone, and Mr. Coban at the moment is sitting near Mr. Parlak, so that if you've got any questions, obviously they will try to assist.
Questions are part of our procedure. Would the police like to, members, have you got any questions of Mr. Sutherland and his team? Yeah, Jonathan, Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, there are a couple of issues I'd like to clarify, if that's okay. Starting up with the application, I think we've got Mr. Hassan Parlak here as the applicant.
Mr. Parlak is, yes.
Yeah.
That's not a name that actually appears in the application form. I just wonder if you or he could explain his relationship with Arin Restaurant Limited, which is the name on the application.
Sorry, sir, I thought I mentioned at the start. He's the director of Arin. He's director shareholder of the applicant company.
Okay, that's helpful. And obviously, one of the issues here, one of the things you've been trying to establish is the difference between the situation now and the situation as it was when the review took place. So I just wanted to clarify. So in terms of the ownership and management of the restaurant, what's the difference now and then?
From the review time?
Yeah.
In relation to the review, the license was held by another individual. The DPS was another person. Mr. Parlak was looking at taking over the business at that stage, and obviously since that period and following on from that with the various different things which have happened with COVID, has now taken over operation and is running the place and has run the place without a license, apart from those occasions when he's had temporary event notices.
Okay, and we've also got a new designated premises supervisor.
Supervisor, so yes.
Yeah, and I just wonder if we could hear a bit ideally directly from him if he's present.
Sorry, I interrupted. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, about what he understands his responsibilities to be, and how he came to take on the role of prospective DPS.
Okay, I'm just gonna turn my laptop over, if I may, so that you'll be able to see him. We may have difficulties with talking. Have you got, has Mr. Hassan got, Parlak got, could you talk it, could you pass Mr. Parlak, because that's, I think, going to be easier. No, if you pass him the phone, if you pass that to Ms. Coban, and then Mr. Coban can talk. I'm not sure Mr. Coban will have heard the question, so I'm just going to repeat it. If I get it wrong, please forgive me, and I'm sure that you will be able to repeat it. Mr. Coban.
Yes, I can speak now.
Just hang on a second. Mr. Coban, what was asked by Councillor Whitehouse was your experience in relation to running licensed premises, what you see as your responsibilities here at the restaurant, and how you'll, sorry, Councillor, I may have missed the last part of. I think it was about his responsibilities and about how you're going to ensure that you comply with the requirements of any license that will be granted. Okay, so do you want to address the phone and speak in there? Okay.
You'll need to unmute, Mr.
Oh,
Coban.
can you, Mr. Coban, can you press the unmute button? Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hi there. Yeah, if you just answer the questions that Mr. Sutherland mentioned, that'd be great.
Yes, my name is Yavuz Coban, and I was the first person to open this shop, which is selling alcohols, and I was holding the license for 3 years, and I didn't have any trouble over here. We didn't have any problems here, and I was using in this place for so good, and now I'm taking it over again. I'm gonna be in discharge on alcohol license, and I'm gonna be the person which is selling the alcohols with 3 other professional person. The 3 of them is got the alcohol license, is got a hygienic license and everything, and I'm gonna be running with them with Mr. Parlak. Mr. Parlak is our owner, and we're gonna do our best to do the business. But right now, because they can't sell alcohol, they can't sell anything, and even they're struggling to pay their rent as well, because if you don't sell alcohol in a restaurant, you won't get any customers. And we try our best to get the license and serve the customers without any problems.
Okay.
And
What now? You want to ask something else?
Hello.
yeah, and I just wonder if you could address specifically the concerns about crime and disorder that's been related to the premises in past months. And
You know that's not my problems. What the past? I'm gonna take him over now. That's the past. That's nothing to do with me. And I'm gonna be the new ones, and I'm gonna talking about now. I'm not gonna talking about the past where they done. I'm gonna be the new person which is do the new things.
so what steps are in place to prevent the recurrence of crime?
I
and
will try
disorder
my
on the
best.
premises?
I will try my best to having any problems on the premises.
Okay, Chairman, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Hadley?
Yes, just a question for Mr. Sutherland. One of the conditions with CCTV are all very impressive, but of course, unless anybody monitors the CCTV, nothing's really going to happen. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I think, sir, in relation to the CCTV, sorry, Mr. Coban, could you just mute for a minute? So that, I think it's very echoey. It certainly is for me. I hope you can all hear me. In relation to the CCTV, if that was being used as the main way of policing this, then yes, it would need to be monitored. I think what I'm looking at putting it forward as, they obviously know the individual whose name that has been mentioned and is put forward in the condition. So therefore, they will be aware if he comes to the place, and it will be their responsibility and their obligation to make sure that if he comes into the premises, that he's asked to leave the premises immediately. I think the issue really in the CCTV is of a monitoring and a review process, so that that obviously is recording. The police, the licensing authority, if at any stage there's a suggestion, or indeed if they wanted to spot check in relation to the compliance with the license, they could ask for CCTV, and they can ask for any time, any period of day, and that would confirm obviously compliance. It's that way, I think, which I would submit that it's more than just a question of, well, if it's never monitored, then it's not going to comply. I think we would see it more as a review and an insurance that we are complying.
Yes, but of course, for the unnamed person, they don't actually have to enter to be involved.
Absolutely. And this condition, the CCTV condition wouldn't assist in relation to the enforcement of that. But I think in relation to the involvement with the business and any proprietary interest, I think the condition is very clear. And if there is a suggestion or if there is evidence that the individual becomes involved, and of course clearly the premises would be liable for that information for a review process to be applied for, whether that's a summary review, as was what happened in the summer, or whether that is a more standard review. I think here what we're saying is, look, he isn't involved with the application. He's not involved with the operation. Irrespective of what the police may say he says, he isn't. And therefore, that's the only way we think that we can actually try and assure people that he's not involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. McManus, would you like to put your case to the police, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm Ronan McManus, and I'm a Essex Police licensing officer.
Hello, Mr. McManus. You've frozen, I think.
Can you hear me okay?
No, I think you frozen, Mr. McManus. Could you start again with what you were
Yes,
saying?
of course. Yes, I'm Ronan McManus from Essex Police County Licensing, and the vast majority of what Mr. Sutherland has said, I agree with. There's a few points that we have a different recollection, but if I start by saying that the incident that actually took the license away in the summer is accurately portrayed, that if I refer to the person in question as relevant person one as opposed to naming them, relevant person one was involved in some criminality which led to the premises having their license reviewed and revoked. Then where I came to this position was in early September, when I met with Mr. Parkland, Mr. Coban, and also the DPS, the proposed DPS. And as Councillor Whitehouse identified, I asked the same question: what is going to change? I was given assurances that relevant person was not connected to them in any way. This was somewhat rebuked by the licensing officer from the local authority, who had been asked to leave the premises the week previously by relevant person claiming to be the owner and the boss of the premises. We raised that in the meeting of the 7th, and we were given assurances that this relevant person has got nothing to do with the premises. I took that on face value, and then through negotiation with Mr. Sutherland, we suggested that we try the management through the use of temporary event notices, which it came in, and there was a couple of little pinch points because the COVID legislation came in and slightly changed. But we were testing the property, the management of it, and how that could work. Unfortunately, on the 6th of October, investigation revealed that relevant person 1 had been involved in some criminality within the Metropolitan Police District. Quite a serious matter, to such an extent it was serious crime and disorder, in that if he is found guilty, he could face up to 10 years imprisonment on first convictions. The Crown Court, he's been committed to the Crown Court, and he had got given bail conditions to live and sleep each night at the address. This was at the point of arrest, he did give his occupation as restaurateur, which sort of lends it more to that he's in the background, although he has the other people in front of him, sort of protecting his property. On the 16th or the 15th of October, I spoke with Mr. Sutherland, and Mr. Sutherland was asked, as you've identified, he said that he was after, well, where could the relevant person be? What's the addresses? There was no mention, or my recollection, that about moving next door. I'm afraid that was a question that I couldn't answer. Ultimately, I have to satisfy myself that the licensing objectives are being met or not in an ability to be undermined. A relevant person then had his bail conditions changed to move from 18 to 16 Sun Street, which I felt, for someone who has no connection to the premises, was quite strange and not really evident of someone that's not connected to the premises. I'd have to say that I'm really happy with the conditions that we talked through previous to all of this. And of note, the relevant person involved in all of this was involved in the criminality in the summer, as we said, but at no point in the history of this premises does that person appear as a designated supervisor, as the premises license holder, or any other sort of documentation connected to the premises. And Councillor Hadley pointed out a very good point in relation to the CCTV. Have the condition whereby the relevant person is not permitted to be there, that the CCTV, that is simply unmanageable for any police officer attending a call there, to have to sit through many hours of CCTV to establish whether one individual was being present or not. Not every police officer in Essex will know the relevant person. And as Mr. Sutherland will be aware, there is no power to require someone to present identification. So the police don't have that power to say, can I have identification documents of anyone that's presented at the premises? So it is literally this relevant person that is the only sticking point for me. I'm very happy with every other condition that's there. The management team that allegedly want to take on and take the premises further, yeah, got no issues at all. For me, it's relevant person and their connection, ownership, or control of the premises. And just as I spoke to Mr. Sutherland, because this came up last week, as of the 27th, the 26th, which I believe was Thursday evening, relevant person has phoned the police to make an allegation of crime, and the relevant person has said, and I quote, the restaurant and his restaurant and his home address are both under threat. So he is the victim of crime in this matter, and an allegation has been taken on by Essex Police and will be investigated. But at that point, relevant person has said that his restaurant and his home are under threat by a suspect. So even as of last week, this relevant person is reporting to have control or business interests in this premises. And under the crime and disorder, on the balance of probability, I believe that he still does. And just to go back to the conditions suggested by Mr. Sutherland, it's not manageable. It's just not manageable for reviewing CCTV to see if someone's there, in his own words, to prove a negative. I just don't have the resources to review CCTV to that extent. And again, the relevant person is under no obligation to carry identification. So therefore, how does an officer responding to these premises, unknown who this relevant person is, how do they police that? So that would be my submissions to the panel. I'm happy to take any questions that may have arisen as a result of my presentation.
That's fine. Yes. Councillor Hadley, have you got any questions of the police?
Yes, I just have one. A little bit, unless it's me, a little bit confusing statement on page 78, where it says, the opinion of Essex Police is that the premises are managed or controlled by persons with no connection to the previous licence holder. Then the same management regime is still in control of the restaurant. It gives rise to the revocation of the alcohol licence, and in effect, nothing has changed. I think that conflicts with each other, doesn't it, that sentence?
On paper, sir, what we're saying is there is a new management style in place. On paper and on the documentation, there is a new management style in there and a new management process. However, it is my understanding and my belief that relevant person one still sits behind this, controlling the people that have been put up to manage, run the premises on his behalf. Silent partner, silent owner, something of that ilk.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Whitehouse?
Yeah, I want to be, I suppose, sure that I'm not inferring more into what your words than you're actually saying. But I mean, do I take it that you're saying that this individual may not have a legal interest in the business, but has some sort of, you describe it as silent or informal or other interest in the business, such as sort of driving an income from the business or something, even though not having any formal role in it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, sir. I am unable to uncover any documentation to link relevant person to the premises, other than by his own admissions as of last week and as of his previously in the summer. And that's where I'm coming from in relation to crime and disorder. That I've an honest held belief that is the case, and he is purposely kept away from any documentation because he's not a suitable person to be linked to this premises in any way.
And even if that was the case, I mean, what are you basing the sort of contention that this would have an adverse impact on crime and disorder? I mean, it would presumably be possible to have an interest in the business without there being crime and disorder associated with it.
Potentially, yes, sir, but the events of the summertime have proved that is not the case, that the premises, and I accept that it was the premises above that were allegedly used in some criminality. And as Mr. Sutherland rightly said, the case did not carry forward simply because of witness issues with the witness. I would suggest that does not suggest that it didn't happen. It just meant that the Crown Prosecution Service were not comfortable with their chances of winning a case So at some point, events did happen, but how they happened is of some speculation.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sutherland, do you want to question the representative from the police?
I think, Madam, I think the only question that I would have for Mr. McManus would relate to the conversation, and it may well be that it just comes down to a recollection of what I said, and my recollection being different from his. In relation to where this individual could reside, do you recall a conversation which went something along the lines of, if he moved next door, is that going to cause a problem? If he moves to the end of the road, does that cause a problem? If he moves elsewhere within Waltham Abbey, does that cause a problem? Do you want him out of the county, or am I okay to say that he just needs to move from the restaurant? And the response, as I recall, was from you, was I need him out of the restaurant. Do you recall that conversation?
I remember the conversation, yes, sir. But I would add that I also added that I can't say how far is far enough, because I just need him to not have any controlling ownership or any link to the premises. And I suppose that's what, I suppose this is where we have a difference of opinion, in as much as, does the panel believe that being next door is too far or far enough? And that was the whole point of this conversation, that I don't have the answers. If you said the next street, the next town, the next county, how far is far enough? I'm afraid I can't answer that question.
In respect of the in respect of the allegations in the summer, it is right, isn't it, that all of those have gone?
That is correct, sir. Yes.
In respect of the operation of the premises, since our meeting in September with Mr. Parlak and Mr. Coban.
Yes, sir. We were testing the system, the management system, with the use of TENS, and although with a few early teething troubles because of the COVID regulation, yeah, it's been absolutely fine. No issues at all.
There's no issues with Mr. Coban or Mr. Parlak. Sorry, I've lost Mr. McManus. I don't know whether. I'm hoping it's just him that's gone, not me.
You're there, Mr.
I'm still here.
Sutherland.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Mr. Sutherland?
Sorry, Ronan. I lost you there. Okay. I was just saying I'm not sure whether you heard my question, but it was in relation to Mr. Coban and Mr. Parlak, whether there were any issues for you in relation to how they'd operated the premises since that meeting in September.
No, sir. The whole reason that we're here is that we cannot come to a compromise in relation to relevant person one.
Understand.
And solely it. I have no issues on how they were managing it between September and October, whenever we then became aware of relevant person.
Thank you. I've got no further questions, Madam.
Okay, thank you. Right, you can have one last little bit to sort of wind up. Mr. McManus, will you go first, please?
I think it's all been said.
Yeah, I think you have. Yeah.
Madam, sorry, ma'am.
Mr. Sutherland, I think you've said it all too.
Madam, if I could have a couple of minutes, there were just a few things which I would like to focus on from what Mr. McManus said when addressing the committee.
New issues, though, please.
Not new issues, Madam. I'm just really focusing, I suppose, my submission on those things which were said by Mr. McManus, which I feel should lead the committee to, on on the balance, on a proportionate approach to grant the license with conditions. And that involved the situation in the summer and the fact that serious allegations were there. All of those charges were dropped, is my understanding, and it is my understanding that it was based on the fact that of the unreliability of a particular witness. I think it is very concerning. I will put it this way. I think it's very concerning for the police to say to you, well, that doesn't mean to say it doesn't happen. We operate in this country on the basis of you're innocent until you're proven guilty. Now, I have no involvement with this particular individual, and I'm not involved with any of the allegations at all. But to suggest that it still happened, I think is just fundamentally wrong in our legal system. That individual is entitled to be treated as being innocent. And on that basis, the allegations which were made that were said to have happened above the premises in the summer have never been proved, never even got to court because they were not sufficient to get to court. I think that's important, and it wasn't something I was going to focus on because really I want to focus on Mr. Parlak and Mr. Coburn. What the police have accepted is that these two individuals, that there is nothing wrong in relation to them, in relation to how they operate the premises. You need to consider, as part of this determination, the operation of the premises under the purposes of the license, the provision of the licensable activities, and how that operation will impact on the licensing objectives. It's my submission, Madam and councillors, that on the basis of what you've heard, it is proportionate, it is appropriate for the license to be granted with conditions. If you're not with me in relation to that one particular condition, all I'm trying to do is reinforce, underline the fact this particular individual, and the police say that they've got no evidence other than what this individual says. We're never present when he says it. And we categorically deny that he has any involvement in this premises. We're offering the condition. If the committee feel that it helps, then by all means impose it. If you don't, then I would still invite you to grant the license on the basis of what you've heard. Because that would be the way to promote the licensing objectives. And there is no evidence that you wouldn't be promoting the licensing objectives by granting this particular application. If I can assist you further.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. McManus. We will now go into private session to make our decision. So you'll be asked to wait in the waiting room if you want to wait.
Chairman, I did note Ms. Fowles was trying to indicate to speak earlier.
Did you?
Say anything before we went into private session?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it was.
Is there something you want to say before we?
Yes, because I wanted to say it because I wanted to say while members still had a chance to ask questions of Mr. McManus, and it may be that Mr. Sutherland should be given a right of response. Another right of response after I've said this, and I think that might be fair. The point I want to draw to the committee's attention is that this committee finds facts on a different legal test to that which is applied by the Crown Court. So this committee may find facts on the balance of probability, whereas the Crown Court may find facts on the standard of beyond all reasonable doubt. So essentially, this committee has a lesser standard than the Crown Court. So it would be entitled to find that certain events have occurred, even if the Crown Court has not found that. It is also for this committee to decide what weight it puts on different evidence. And to that end, I thought it might assist the committee to hear a little bit more detail from Mr. McManus and perhaps from Mr. Sutherland why exactly the case around the events in the summer collapsed. What was the problem with the witness, and why was it not pursued?
Mr. McManus, can you answer that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my understanding of the case is that the victim in this matter gave an account that they were taken by force from one location to the premises involved at the Abbey Grill. The investigation sort of revealed that actually that victim had turned up at the premises in his own vehicle, and then the incident continued. My understanding is that the Crown Prosecution Service felt that that the victim's integrity was undermined, and that's when they no longer took the case forward.
All right, thank you. I think that might go to the weight that the members wish to put place on this evidence, which I would also point out is of course hearsay evidence anyway. The committee is entitled to consider hearsay evidence. It is for the committee to decide what weight to place on hearsay evidence.
Okay, thank you. We're quite happy to go into private session now.
Madam, I don't know whether I can just respond, if I may, to what Mr. Foles has said to you at this stage.
Yes, of course, yes. Briefly.
Very briefly, in relation to the different standards of proof, of course that's entirely right, but you've never heard the evidence, and therefore, in relation to the police officer saying this is what's happened, it's very difficult, of course, because we're not only just talking about first-hand hearsay, but I think we must be on about second, third, or fourth-hand hearsay by the time that Mr. McManus has looked at various different statements. And indeed, my comments, Madam, are based probably even more distant than that, because I am reliant upon a police officer who was involved in the investigation, who reported to the CPS at various different times. So clearly, the weight of what I have said, Madam, I don't put it forward other than it seems to be accepted by both the police and by myself that the charges did not proceed at the Crown Court. They didn't even get to a trial. Evidence was never put in front of the court, simply because the Crown Prosecution Service, the prosecution, did not feel that they had sufficient evidence to put in front of a court. And I would submit that on the test that they would apply to do that is actually probably a lesser test than you're having to consider, because it would have been, at best, it would have been on the balance of probabilities. Because if we'd got to that, or if we got to that level, they would have proceeded to the Crown Court.
Sorry, I need to say this when Mr. Sutherland has a chance to respond. The test that the Crown Prosecution Service apply is whether there is a good chance of success and whether it is in the public interest to proceed. So essentially, the Crown Prosecutor is looking for a better than 50% chance of success of proving facts beyond reasonable doubt. Just be clear about that.
Which precisely makes my point. It's on a better than 50% chance, which obviously they were not satisfied. So therefore, on the balance of probabilities, he was satisfied that he wouldn't have got the conviction. So I think what I'm saying to you is that the test that's been applied by the CPS is identical, if not less than the test that you would need to apply, and therefore you should disregard anything in relation to the allegations in the summer. The other point, which I think is being said, at the end of the day, it comes down to whether the victim was being believed, and clearly he was not.
Do you think that's fair enough now, Mr. Fowles, that we've given them each another chance?
Yes, absolutely. I think we've now been...
Were you putting your hand up, or were you just getting fidgety? Right, okay. Okay, thank you very much then. Can we turn the webcast off then, or whatever that, please?
It's been restarted.
Thank you. Right, members and applicants. Sorry for the delay, but these things always take a long time and it's a difficult decision. We consider that this application satisfies the necessary requirements in order to be considered as it is on the prescribed form. It has been advertised and relevant notifications given. We are grateful to the parties for their presentations to us this afternoon. We have taken these and the written material submitted to us into account. We have considered what is appropriate to promote the full licensing objectives and the relevant parts of the Council's licensing policy and the Home Office's guidance. A full written statement of reasons will be published and distributed to parties in due course. In summary, the committee is of the view that granting a licence in the instant application will be inimical to the licensing objective, the prevention of crime and disorder. During our deliberations in private session, our advisory officers advised on the relevant standard of proof and the correct procedure for taking a decision. They also gave us advice that conditions imposed must be appropriate to be capable of being enforceable and must not undermine the licensing objective, and also that each case must be determined on its own merit. The full explanation of the officers' and legal advisors' advice will be set out in the written statement of reasons to be published and distributed in due course. Refusal. The decision of this subcommittee is that the application for a premises licence in respect of 18 Sun Street, Waltham Abbey, Essex, EN91EE, be refused. I will now outline in summary the reasons which we consider are reasonable and proportionate for refusal in relation to the licensing objective. The full written statement of reasons will be provided in due course. In relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, the committee concluded that on the balance of probabilities, the individual known as relevant person 1, RP1, remains involved with the premises and has a relationship with the business. The committee concluded that on the balance of probabilities, RP1 has been involved in criminality, including criminal acts which have taken place at or near the premises. The authority has a positive duty to enhance the licensing objective. The committee has concluded that RP1's involvement in the premises increases the risk of criminal acts taking place in or around the premises, and therefore is inimical to the licensing objective of reducing crime and disorder. The committee concluded that the conditions proposed by the applicant would not be sufficient to mitigate this. The applicants and the objectors are reminded of their right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of date of the written notification of this decision. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Anna.
I think that's it. Thank you very much. You'll go and have a nice evening now. Should I go? Oh, I didn't think that. Where's that?